think the current new 5-year plan has been putting bioprocessing on the top next to semiconductors. I think they are going to pull out the same business model as they have been using for automotive, steel industry, photovoltaic stuff. I think that we will see a replication of that for the bioprocessing industry. And I think the only way out here is to innovate. And I think also the Chinese industry has understood that they need innovation to become more profitable, because currently they are extracting a lot of revenue from Europe and the US, but they're having a hard time to be profitable because I think currently they have been just replicating what the industry has been doing the last 20 years in Europe and the US.
Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Juergen Mairhofer, who is the CEO of enGenes Biotech. In part 1, we explored the science behind continuous microbial manufacturing and what makes E. coli such a powerful production platform. Now we zoom out. In a world of CDMO overcapacity, margin pressure, and shifting geopolitics, does advanced bioprocessing actually become a competitive weapon? And what does it take to build a biotech company from the ground up? Let's find out. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brohlman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. I would come back now to your comments where you said we must innovate. That's a very important point because we live in an industry where we've seen a lot of changes. And you also said, for instance, in synthetic biology, a lot of things have happened since you started. To what extent can the continuous processing you have developed be a competitive advantage, but also a way to lead the way in this evolving industry and to be finally secure the business and be also an attractive CDMO?
I think what I can say here is if you wait for the technology to be completely mature, you will wait for your competitor to pass you. I think this is the point. I see a lot of skepticism when I talk to people. One of the arguments is sometimes we haven't done that in the past. Why should we do that in the future? It's so complicated. And there is all of these regulatory aspects that we have to overcome. But at the same time, we also know currently that the business in the CDMO space that we're currently seeing cannot go on like it used to be successful in the past, because I think this model is somehow broke. And I think there will be a lot of consolidation going on in the upcoming months and years, because I think in Europe, most of the CDMOs, they are below 100 million of revenue. So they will have a hard time to stay alive at some point. And I think there is also a lot of pressure from Asia, especially about China. I think the current new 5-year plan has been putting bioprocessing on the top next to semiconductors. I think they are going to pull out the same business model as they have been using for automotive, steel industry, photovoltaic stuff. I think that we will see a replication of that for the bioprocessing industry. And I think the only way out here is to innovate. And I think also the Chinese industry has understood that they need innovation to become more profitable. Because currently they are extracting a lot of revenue from Europe and the US, but they're having a hard time to be profitable because I think currently they have been just replicating what the industry has been doing the last 20 years in Europe and the US. So they are working with outdated processes, the same outdated processes than the US and European CDMOs are still working with. And they have realized that they have to innovate their way out. I think we have to understand that also in Europe and the US, that the only way out is innovation, because by innovation we can overcome the cost advantage that countries have that have cheaper energy and cheaper labor. With that understanding, I think the only way forward is to try to be as innovative as possible, at the same time trying to overcome the regulatory hurdles as fast as possible. I think this is what we have to keep in mind and where we probably have to change our mindset. It will be probably not an easy task, but I think it's going to be a task that is worthwhile to work on.
So what I'm hearing, Juergen, that the way to stay competitive would be on the technology side, on the bioprocess side, not necessarily on the cost side or the geography, because that's very difficult to compete against that, and that's a race towards the bottom. So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around that, because we hear about overcapacity in CDMOs. We hear about this intense price pressure. There's a lot of things moving on, and there are not so many CDMOs that have continuous capacity, for instance. So just help us understand how this technology innovation competitive advantage will finally help, especially European or American CDMOs stay competitive, where the cost of labor is much higher.
As I said, I think the only solution is to innovate ourselves out of this situation versus investing in outdated approaches and trying to extract the last euro or dollar from stainless steel large-scale facilities by using outdated technology that doesn't bring any advantage to the customer. Because if you just sell capacities, you are not doing anyone good. So I think this is maybe the major problem that we are seeing. And by being at the forefront of innovation, I think you can hook more customers, you can become more successful, but you have to take some risk. I mean, you have to invest probably in implementing new technologies. You have to also work on a change in mindset, because thinking in terms of a continuous process, this is not an easy task. I mean, I've seen that in my own organization. People have to learn that. But once you have this learning accomplished, you unlock so many things, because the people start to think in a complete different way, and they are capable then of solving problems on less complexity levels. That's why I would say don't be afraid. Just push into the opening up new landscape and try to accommodate yourself before it's too late. Start with a pilot project. Maybe don't start with the most important product in that case, but with a project where you can learn, find partners like enGenes who master the technology and can enable knowledge transfer, and start now, because the companies that master continuous in the upcoming years will be the ones that stay competitive. So this is what I can say here.
To what extent, Juergen, will continuous manufacturing become the industry standard in the future?
I think we will be living in a parallel universe for the next decade, I would assume. I mean, I don't have to tell you what has been built in the past surrounding us. People have been building large-scale stainless steel facilities for Joe, for example. And I think they won't go away. They will stay with us for a long time until they are fully depreciated and the product are probably shifted to somewhere else. So they will stay and they will be reutilized. At the same time, we will see small footprint continuous manufacturing coming up. So there will be a parallel universe that we have to live and work with. But I think the long-term future will see more and more continuous processes arising on the horizon, because if we can master the complexity, we unlock so many cost savings and so much increase in productivity that it's worth persuading that path.
In this last part of our conversation, Juergen, I would like to talk about your experience and learnings as a company leader. What advice would you give to brilliant scientists who are considering like yourself spinning off their technology into a company? What do they need to know about that science alone won't teach them?
That's a very good question. And if you think about that, the honest answer is your technology doesn't sell itself no matter how good it is. I think technology excellence is necessary. I think this is the most important point, but it's not sufficient alone. So the best tech often loses to better marketed tech. I mean, this is what we also had to learn the hard way. So there are always people that scream louder, although they don't have superior technology. At the end of the day, they get financing. So you also have to think from a customer perspective, not just out of scientific elegance. I think this is also a difficult lesson for someone that comes from academic mindset where you always think about, okay, my solution is so brilliant, why people don't care about it. So you have to really try to remove your ego from that perspective. Another thing I want to mention is that cash is like oxygen. So if you run out of cash, it's game over. So this is also something that you always have to consider. We have been building the company on revenue, so we always have to try to onboard new projects. Also, something that is relevant, I think it's not the hard times that are the focus point. I mean, you can go through the hard times and you have to, but you have to make the right decisions during the good times. I think this is what people also, including me, we always forget. You run through hard times, then you enter in good times again, and then you think, okay, let's breathe again. But this is the tipping point where you have to say, okay, now I have to make the right decisions. So I think this is also something relevant to people. And last but not least, I would say the team is everything. I remember having written in my PhD thesis one quote of Joe Strummer, frontman of The Clash, saying, "Without people, you are nothing." And I think this is the most valid quote you can have for a company, because you can be a brilliant mind on top of the company as a CEO, but if you don't have a team that is playing the same ball game as you are lost. So focus on the team and treat your people nice.
Yeah, excellent. That's really good advice. Thank you for sharing your experience. Before we wrap up, Juergen, what burning question haven't I asked that you're eager to share with our biotech community?
I think we could quickly speak about what shifts in the bioprocessing landscape have surprised you most. And then my answer is going to be like big pharma is trying to vertically integrate again. When I founded enGenes 12 years ago, the narrative was clear. So big pharma outsourced, CDMOs were growing. And I think this starts to fundamentally reverse. So if you think about Pfizer, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk building their own capabilities in massive scale, the in-house production is growing again, and compound annual growth rate, I think, is around 10%. So big companies have understood that manufacturing is a very strategic asset and not a cost center. I think this is what they have learned during the last couple of years. And I just was talking to colleagues that were coming back from a cell and gene therapy conference in the US, and they were also telling me that the big pharma companies have acquired a lot of small innovative companies and now looking to vertically integrate the supply chain again. Because when you think about AAV manufacturing, for example, people have been outsourcing the production of raw materials like plasmid DNA. Now they are looking to vertically integrate that again because these raw materials have been sold at a very high price. The same is true for Moderna or Biotech. They also built their own capabilities in producing raw materials for their processes because of all these supply chain issues that we have been seeing during COVID. And I think this is a very big opportunity for enGenes, for example, because we are not directly competing with CDMOs for fermentation capacity. We develop the technology and processes that these companies are in need of, and we can help them or empower them to vertically integrate and to do things on their own again without being reliable on third parties and without incurring very high costs for doing that. I think this is what is a very interesting aspect, that things are going back to where we have been 20 years ago.
We have covered a lot of ground today. What is the most important takeaway from our conversation?
Don't be afraid, I would say.
Excellent. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid, and let's innovate our way out. I think all of us in the biotech industry had a hard time the last 2 years or more. I mean, the COVID things have been becoming tough. And now we see all these geopolitical shifts going on, the insecurities that we are confronted with, all these reshoring initiatives that are ongoing, like Biosecurity Act, whatever. I mean, you name it. And I think to get back to normal and to stay ahead of the competition, I think we have to be innovative. Otherwise, I think I said it before, otherwise we will become irrelevant because the rest of the world is not sleeping. It's the opposite. And I think only the innovation that can help us to stay ahead of the competition. That I would say is the wrap up of our very nice discussion today.
Where can a smart biotech scientist who wants to learn more about your E. coli strain and also your continuous capabilities get a hold of you?
Get a hold of me. I mean, we have a lot of peer-reviewed publications out there. So if you're interested in the technological details, just dig into that. We currently have a accepted publication in Trends of Biotechnology together with the Technical University in Copenhagen. So with Andreas Lausten's group. I want to advertise for that because it's such a nice project. We have been producing snake antivenom, single domain antibodies in one pot bioreactor, bringing down the costs using E. coli for producing antivenom significantly for treating people that are empoisoned by snake. I think every minute someone is stepping on a snake somewhere out in the world, and this approach will help to save the lives of these people. That's why we are very proud of this approach. So just as an advertisement here. And you can find me on different conferences. So I will be, for example, in Barcelona the week after next week on the Bioprocessing Summit. I'm going to be in Dublin on the conference of the International Society of Cell and Gene Therapy. So you will find me out on several conferences. And if you are somewhere close to Vienna or in Vienna, just feel free to give me a shout. I'm always happy to talk to people and also help young entrepreneurs in a way, because I'm doing this now for 12 years, growing a lot of gray hair. By doing that, seeing a lot of different problems, making a lot of mistakes on that way. So I can pass on that knowledge if somebody needs some help in that regard.
There you got it, smart biotech scientists. Please take advantage of it. I will also leave the company links in the show notes. And Juergen, thank you very much for sharing your passion, also for giving us a wake-up call about innovation. It has been a huge pleasure to have this conversation with you today.
David, thanks a lot for having me. It was a real pleasure to discuss today with you. I'm looking forward to feedback from the community, what they think about what I think.
From strain engineering to supply chain geopolitics to the raw realities of building a biotech company, Juergen Mairhofer brought a perspective you don't hear every day. If this episode made you think differently about where bioprocessing is headed, share it with a colleague and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It helps other scientists like you discover the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, do biotech the smart way. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.